magazine, journal, commercial book, textbook. Oh my goodness. I'm writing an academic paper and I have to cite all these sources and some sources on the web in that academic paper. And I don't even know where to begin, let alone whether or not one is a academic source or a commercial source or what. Well, lucky for you, I'm Professor Reboot, and I'm going to teach you today how to identify what type of source you are citing for both your in-text and bibliographical citation, regardless of what citation style you are using, whether it is Chicago, Associated Press, MLA, APA, Vancouver. It doesn't matter, because the first thing you need to know is what type of source you are citing so that you can use that information to construct the components of your source citation. Without that information, without that knowledge, your citations run the risk of being incorrect. And an incorrect citation, unfortunately, can be tied to what is called an academic integrity violation, even if you do it by accident. Now, I know that many of you are going to be tempted to use artificial intelligence generators like EasyBib or Citation Generator to create the citations for you, but I caution you against that, because even though that seems like a really easy fix, and even though you're probably thinking, well, it's got to be right, it's got an algorithm, I can tell you from my most recent article in the peer-reviewed journal, which we're going to talk about, Advances in Online Education, March 2025, generative AI large language model chatbots are designed to give you what is statistically likely to be true, not what is factually true. And so relying on them, even citation generators, to create your citations for you is extremely dangerous and can land you in very hot water, including allegations of plagiarism. So in this video, I'm hoping to help you avoid that by showing you what to look for when you're identifying what type of source you have, so that you can use that in a citation style guide to determine how to construct your source both in text, which is in the body of your paper. That's when you see usually parentheses, and typically it's the content creator's last name. Depending on your style, you might have the year it was published or created, and the page, paragraph number, or the minute mark of a video. And then also your bibliographical citation, which goes at the end of your paper. In MLA, we call that a works cited page, and in APA, we call it references. It's called different things in different citation styles. But we'll talk about citations in another video. For this video, we're deciding what types of sources we have so that we can decide best how to cite them. So let's start. This first one we're going to look at is a trade journal, Poets and Writers. Now, I can tell that this is a trade journal because this is not People magazine. It's not hanging on the rack right next to the grocery store checkout, hoping I'll buy it as an impulse purchase so that I can read all about the latest happenings in the bromance on Hollywood sets, blah, blah, blah. That would be a commercial publication. There may be times that you need to academically cite commercial publications. For example, you might be doing a study on depictions of women in those commercial publications, and you need to be able to cite what you find in them. So there actually is a way to cite commercial publications. But if you're citing a trade magazine like Poets and Writers or Welding 101 or Popular Mechanics, Science Today, any of those trade magazines, then chances are you're citing them because you are trying to reach for a level of expertise, authority in the research that you're using that would be recognized by your readers, and not just some random article that was written by a blogger that you don't even necessarily know actually has any authority to say what they're saying about the subject matter. So here, Poets and Writers is a trade magazine. As a professional writer, I do subscribe. And so this magazine, or journal, periodical, depending on how you want to refer to it, will have multiple authors, multiple articles within it. I should be able to tell on the edge what year or edition or issue number I have. I may need to know who the editor-in-chief is, depending on what part I'm citing. And I will definitely need to know the name of the author of the particular article I'm referencing, let's say it's this one, which has multiple authors, and also the year and date it was published, as well as the title of the article in the trade journal. I'm going to need all of that and possibly some information about who the publisher was. Often you're going to need to look for where the publisher is located and the publisher's name, as well as the publication date. Let's compare that with an academic peer-reviewed journal. Now, in terms of writing an academic paper, this is your gold standard. But art is a discipline, and we study art just like we would study anything else. And so this peer-reviewed journal, everything that's in here was written by an expert in the field of art education, and it was peer-reviewed by other experts in the field of art education to ensure that every detail in this journal is fact-checked, accurate, and true to the best of the ability of an entire conglomeration of experts on art education. Now, one of the ways that you can tell perhaps the difference between a trade journal and a peer-reviewed journal, I'm just going to very quickly flip through this trade journal. Notice there's a lot of pictures. Well, now this is an art journal, so it's a little different, but even though it's an art journal, do you notice that there's a lot fewer pictures here? Much more text. Peer-reviewed journals tend to be very targeted, audience-focused, expository writing designed to deliver research in a very particular field. So peer-reviewed journals are the ones that represent the highest standard of research that you can contribute to your own academic writing, and you're going to want to use these pretty much more than anything else, even what we're going to look at next, which is a textbook. This textbook, designed for how people learn, is in its second edition by world-renowned Julie Dirksen. I have had the honor of meeting her, and I use this textbook for a graduate course I teach in instructional design and project management. Now, this is very handy because this whole book was written by one person. So it doesn't matter if I'm referencing page 95 or page 53. Every single page that I reference in this book will be a Dirksen reference. That's different than an anthology. Now, a textbook is an expert resource, but it was written by one person. Chances are they had a number of editors, particularly that this was published by an imprint of Pearson, which is a very well-known academic textbook publisher. So this will have been vetted by educators and people at Pearson who made sure that Dirksen was absolutely a credible and authoritative resource on this subject matter. And a single author expert is still going to be a little bit lower down the academic integrity scale than a peer-reviewed journal, because that's a whole book by one person, and one person, no matter how hard they try, will have a little more bias than, say, 20, 30, 40 people working together to create an article. Now let's compare that textbook with this commercial-friendly book. Now, this might look to you like a textbook. It's by Toko Pa Turner. It's nonfiction. It's about analyzing your dreams. She does that for a living. So you might think that this is as expert or as high level as Julie Dirksen. But the publisher for this book is her own room press, not a known textbook publisher. And so this book, even though it looks just like the textbook, it's intended to be nonfiction, it's still meant to be a beach read. You're still meant to read this with your toes squelching in the sand as you learn about interpreting dreams. Whereas this book, you're meant to read over and over again, perhaps returning to it multiple times to pull out facts that you need to validate whatever work it is you're doing or whatever research it is you are conducting. So that's how you can sort of tell the difference between a commercial book with a single author and a textbook with a single author. And understanding the difference between your sources also helps you to determine its credibility, its reliability, its authority, meaning is it an expert on the subject? Does the source come from a place of authority? Its accountability, and whether or not it's timely. For instance, if I want to cite research on heart surgery, I probably should cite something from 2024 or 2025, it's 2025 right now, and not, say, the heart surgery documentation that we have from the 18th century, because technology and information has come a long way. Unless, of course, I'm writing about the history of heart surgery, and then, of course, the year that the article I'm referencing does matter, and it would be okay to reference an 18th, 17th century medical journal on open heart surgery. But the key is audience and purpose, and then your source. So whenever you have a source that's print, you will always be referencing the author or content creator and the page number. That sounds really simple, I'm sure. But depending on your citation style, you may have other things that you need to add to that citation as well. And that's just for your in-text. In your bibliographical text, so MLA Works Cited, APA reference page, you have a lot more information you need to include. Author, title of the book, issue, volume number, publisher location, publisher name, year it was published, possibly the year it was originally published. If there's an editor, the editor's names. If there's a translator, the translator's names. And if you have a URL, the URL where you got the information. Which brings me to a textbook I love to use. So I teach Intro to Ethics at one of the universities where I am an educator, and I use this Intro to Ethics book by a pair of editors, Lee Archie and John G. Archie. Now, as you look at this, it looks like these are the authors of the book right there on the title page. You would think Archie and Archie wrote this book, but in fact, they're not. They're the editors or the curators of the content of this book, as you'll see as we go through the table of contents. This is what you would call an anthology, or a collection, depending on the citation style guide you are referencing. So as you look through this book, you'll be able to find where it was published, what edition it's in, what year it was published, and also when you get into the table of contents, you'll be able to distinguish who wrote what. And I want you to make a special note of the fact that even though this is an open educational resource, which means it is publicly available on the web, you don't have to pay for it, I am still using a paginated PDF instead of just a bare HTML page. And the reason is that a page numbered text is always going to be more useful to a reader of a research paper than an HTML page. So if I have the choice between the PDF or an ebook and just an HTML page with no page numbers, I'm always going to go with the PDF because I can then point my reader to the exact page in that book where I got the information that I'm summarizing, paraphrasing, or quoting. The reason that's important is all academic writing is about building on the scholarship so that we can stand on the shoulders of the giants that came before us. And so as we do our own research, we contribute research for others to take that research for themselves, find the same information, and build on it. So as you're looking at this Archie and Archie book, remember, edited by Archie and Archie, Intro to Ethics, you'll notice that each chapter has a different author and a range of pages. Hubbard Winslow wrote chapter 1, and chapter 1 is Conscience Determines What's Right. Chapter 2 is written by Alexander Bain. Conscience is Learned. So if I'm going to cite both Hubbard Winslow and Alexander Bain in one of my research papers, guess what? I'm going to have 2 citations on my bibliography page, not just one. Yes, it's the same book, but that doesn't matter. Because in the world of citation, what matters is who created the content, not who put it together in one book. So if I'm citing both Winslow and Bain, the first part of my bibliography will be different, even if the last part will still point to the same book and the same URL for this online PDF. For instance, in a reference page in APA format, always alphabetical, it would be Bain first, even if I started my paper with Winslow. So it would be Bain, comma, A period, because APA uses initials. And then it would be the article. I need the name of the article, Conscience is Learned. And let's say I'm using a direct quote. I would need the page number and then the rest of the information from the book for the bibliography would be the editors, what year it was originally published, what year it was published by the editors, what the PDF, the URL, or the document number is. I need all of that information, volume, issue, edition, publisher, all of that for the bibliography. And I will also repeat that when I do the Hubbard-Winslow citation. Only the difference will be that this one would start with Winslow, comma, H, in APA again, and it would reference this article, Conscience Determines What's Right. The rest of the citation would refer to the same book. So it is possible to have 7, 20, 10 references to the same book, but have them all be different because they were written by different people in one resource. So, for example, let's say I want to cite this section by Hubbard-Winslow, and I want to cite precisely thus a man's intellect perceives and his conscience makes him feel. That is, it makes him experimentally know the distinction between right and wrong. When I cite that in text, I will refer to Winslow and not Archie and Archie, because Archie and Archie did not write this. They just put it in a book. Winslow is the one who wrote it. And depending on the citation style I'm using, what comes next will either be a page number, the year it was published, and then a page number, or sometimes the year it was translated, then the year it was published, and then a page number. But we'll get into citation style in another video. For now, I just want you to know that this is an anthology with multiple authors. Now, this is a paginated anthology that I have found online. It has a link that I can use when I do my referencing. That's great. But sometimes you might use something that maybe doesn't have pagination. For instance, here is Project Gutenberg's copy of Sylvia Plath's book, The Bell Jar. The Bell Jar is popular fiction, but there are many reasons you might cite fiction. You might be doing a literary analysis for an English lit class, or you might be talking about creative writing strategies and dissecting the way that Sylvia Plath created this book. Regardless of what the purpose is of your paper, if you are citing an HTML version of a resource that is text-based, as you can see here, there are no page numbers. So if I quote, paraphrase, or summarize any part of this book, it doesn't matter if I'm all the way at the end of the book. Look how much there is here. There will be no number for me to put unless I'm in APA. APA expects me to count the paragraphs from the very top of the page all the way down to whatever paragraph I'm in that I'm referring to. So bear in mind, in HTML world, you don't have page numbers. You're probably better off using a resource that has page numbers because it's easier on you anyway. I am 3/4 of the way through this page, and counting all of these paragraphs to figure out what paragraph number this section comes from would be very challenging for an APA citation. I would much prefer to use a PDF version or an ebook version that has page numbers. So for that reason, I might turn to something like the Internet Archive. Now, this is the Internet Archive's copy of the Ethics of Aristotle. What I love about the Internet Archive is, as you can see, it is the original book, and I am flipping through it just like I would on a Kindle. And I am looking at the book in its original format. And as if I look down here, I can find all the information I need to cite it as well. This is a 1902 edition of Aristotle. Now, I'm smart enough to know that Aristotle lived a long time ago and did not write in English. So this has to be a translation. So I would be looking for who translated this book. And if I can't find it in this information on the Internet Archives pages, I would try to find it on the title page of the book. And it looks like, oh, I just missed it, Arthur L. Humphreys. That also might be the publisher, so I'd want to do a little digging to be sure. Here we are. Translated by P.P.C.H., it looks like. In 1847. So the translation year of this book it's interesting because it's different than the publication year, which is 1902. So if I'm using an Internet Archive copy of an ebook, and I only use the Internet Archive because it's free, You could also be citing an ebook that you got from the library or an ebook that you purchased. As long as you are citing a book that has page numbers, you would still reference the page number of the book, even though you have an HTML link that you would be referencing at the end of your citation in the bibliographical citation. So let's move on. Now let's say you are writing a well, let's go here. Now let's say you're referencing a PDF that doesn't have a clear-cut author. Here you are looking at one of my favorite sources to hand out to my English comp students. This is the structure of an academic paper by the Harvard Graduate School of Education's Writing Center and Communications Lab. Now, as you can see, this is a paginated PDF, but there is no clear-cut author. There's no name on this document except Harvard Graduate School of Education Writing Center and Communications Lab. And what that means is this has what we call an institutional author. Now, arguably, this person here, Simone A. Fried, might be the author, but I'd wager this is an institutional author, and it's the Harvard Writing Center and Communications Lab. Now, when you have an institutional author, that just means that rather than an individual writing this document, either a group of people got together and wrote it, or one or two people wrote it, and it was approved by whoever was running the Harvard Writing Center at the time to be published on their website. Now, when you're looking at web materials, publishers can start to get a little gray, so it's important to gather as much information as you can about the context of where you found that information. So here I have a direct URL from harvard.edu. That actually probably is the publisher, and so I would point to Harvard and Harvard's location if I need that information in my citation, which I'll find out when I look at my citation style guide for whichever citation style I'm using. Let's imagine, though, that you're referencing an HTML page that does have a clear-cut author and is just basic HTML. Here you have Caitlin Van Kampen. This is a librarian who put together this page on evaluating resources and information using the CRAB test. You may have heard me refer to that earlier. If I wanted to reference this page, it depends on what I'm quoting or paraphrasing, and what citation style I'm using, but I would just reference that this is from the University of Chicago Library as the institutional publisher. There is, however, an author of the content, Caitlin Van Kampen, unless I can see somewhere else on the page where there is a publisher. Now, ideally, there will be somewhere on this page a date of publication. I do see an updated date right here, updated June 30th, 2025. That might be my date of publication, but depending on my citation style, I might not be able to use that date. So make sure you look at your citation manual to determine how best to use the information you have. Now, sometimes you will be in an online course like this one. This is one of my creative writing courses in a learning management system called Brightspace. And you may need to cite information that you got from that course site. For instance, here is a video lecture I created on how to show with words as opposed to tell with words. If you're using course materials from an online course, or if you're using even lecture materials from a lecture that you heard from your instructor live in a classroom, citation style guides actually do have a method for how you would cite that information. And the content creator, typically in that case, the professor, would be the originator of the content, would be the prime element of the structure of that citation. So if you're citing content that you get from a course site or content that you get from a live course, there actually are ways to do that. So let's now look at Wikipedia. Wikipedia is a very tempting resource. Wikipedia does a lot of the work for us, and we might even argue, because it has so many editors behind the scenes, that this is an academic source that should be in an academic paper, but I caution you, no, because Wikipedia is fraught with problems. First off, Wikipedia does cite its sources, so it's a great launch pad for research. For instance, if I was researching academic writing, I might go to Wikipedia's page and try to find these original resources for myself so that I could then read, say, this article here, Stance and Engagement, a Model of Interaction in Academic Discourse, with my own eyes, and use that reference as opposed to Wikipedia. And some of the reasons why Wikipedia is not used in academia include the fact that regardless of how much work people put into this, and it's wonderful how much work people put in, there is a very huge demographic skew in terms of the demographics of the editors who have the final say on the articles that get put through. Fewer than 10% of the editors of Wikipedia are identify as anything other than cisgendered male or as people of color. So that means that there is some inherent biases in Wikipedia. It does not mean that anyone involved in the creation of Wikipedia is doing anything wrong. It just means that we need to be thinking always about the sources that we use and how and why we use them. So if I were using Wikipedia, I would not cite Wikipedia. I instead would use it to help me jumpstart my research by using the very great research that those Wikipedia editors conducted to find my own way to some of the sources that they reference directly. Now, having said that, let's circle now around to something that is a current topic of conversation and causes quite a lot of concern. This is ChatGPT, and ChatGPT is a large language model generative AI chatbot that will create any number of types of text for you. Now, I know it goes without saying that if you were to take a prompt for a class assignment and put it into ChatGPT and ask it to create a paper for you, you know that that is cheating. And that would be considered an academic integrity violation called plagiarism that could get you expelled from school. So I know that you're not going to do that. But further, I'm going to show you why you don't want to do that, even if you think you might get away with it. ChatGPT, Copilot, Bard, Gemini, any of the AIs that you use, again, are programmed to give you what is statistically likely to be true, not what is factually true. During the article that I referenced that I wrote, Pay Attention to the Chatbot Behind the Curtain, my co-writer and I ran a test where we asked ChatGPT every day for 3 months, what is heavier, 2 pounds of feathers or 1 pound of lead? Don't overthink it. What is heavier, 2 pounds or 1 pound? 2 pounds. It doesn't matter if it's 2 pounds of feathers or 1 pound of lead, or 2 pounds of lead and 1 pound of feathers. You've already done the weighing measurement when you say how many pounds it is. But ChatGPT got it wrong every day for 3 months. And it is because statistically it was saying that feathers are less dense than lead. And when people ask questions about feathers versus lead, they're not looking for a straightforward answer to how much something weighs. So AI gets it wrong. It lies to you. It does something called hallucinations. So if I ask ChatGPT to generate, say, a list of resources, create a list of sources for a paper on academic writing, cite in MLA 9th style. Well, ChatGPT is going to do its very best to do that list for me. But notice how none of these sources except this one is digital. And this is not 100% accurate MLA citation style. In fact, one of the things that it is missing right out of the gate is a hanging indentation. There's actually more that it's missing that concerns me as I look at this list. So if I were to get something like this as an instructor from a student, I would immediately send it back and say, this is not structured correctly. You need to look at your citation style guide. Even though you're tempted to think AI got it right, I'm telling you, it did not. But let's look at one of these just as an example. JSTOR is a great site, so we'll go ahead and head over to that link. Now, according to ChatGPT, this should be the language of inclusion by Mike Rose, and we're exclusion, sorry, and we are quite lucky it actually does match. Mike Rose, the language of exclusion, is right here. However, somewhere in here, I can almost guarantee there's going to be at least one hallucination, and that means a made up source, or it will deliver information that is true but connect it to a source that is not true. So when you are tempted to use AI, you need to vet it, you need to check it, and above all things, you need to cite it. So modern citation manuals have adapted to the use of large language model chatbots, and there are methods in every citation style for citing what you generate with AI. So if you're going to use AI in an academic paper, yes, it is possible as long as your instructor says it's okay and your school policy agrees to it. You can use AI and you can cite it both in text and in the bibliography, just like you can cite course resources, even course resources that are online or experienced in person. You can also cite emails that you exchange with an expert. You can cite works of art. You can cite popular movies. You can cite YouTube videos. There are all sorts of media in the world that you can cite. And it is because of that vast array of media that we have so many different editions of citation manuals for the citation style guides that we use. So hopefully this video has helped you identify the type of source you might be holding in your hand and are tempted to cite. This is Professor Reboot signing off. In the next video, we'll discuss how to do in-text citations in a specific citation style. See you then.